All right, we alive, and I'm just gonna run a quick intro here too.
I did
So
see your intro.
yeah, we'll have that going.
Oi, headhunter.
Welcome everybody. We have probably a couple people live right now with us. I am joined by Matt Hurd. Matt, great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no worries, man. Well, so for everyone who's out there, Matt is VP of Operations at Fireseeds, and we connected probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. Had a great conversation. Fireseeds works with a ton of really large companies. Probably the most recognizable companies, Chick Fil-A, probably my favorite company ever. But Fireseeds really has an approach of true partnership with their clients. So they not only help them recruit, but they also have a leadership development sister company. And Matt is really intricately involved in both of those operations. So we're super happy to have you here. And I think from episode 1, it's going to be a really nice continuation. I know that the vision that you guys have and the vision that you have for recruiting is right in line with what we're trying to do. And funnily enough, Matt and myself both worked at the same company, Wells Fargo. So maybe anybody that comes from Wells Fargo, like you get a taste of their culture and then you automatically know.
You leave immediately.
Yeah, exactly. So Matt, we're happy to have you here. And is this your first time live or first time doing a podcast?
This is the first time. So man, I saw your post. I guess it was a month ago, looking for folks to be on the show, and we've been more active just as a brand on LinkedIn, just saying, look, we've obviously been sourcing on LinkedIn for a long time, and we said, look, we want to get into the content game, really just for more people to see who Fireseeds is. And because of that, I came across your content, and as everybody knows, you're doing an excellent job posting out just great insight into the industry. So hopefully I won't be too far behind you here in about a year. I know it took you about a year to get going and get to where you are today. But no, man, really enjoyed your stuff so far, and so that's ultimately why I reached out.
Yeah, no, and I think when we had connected, like I connect with a lot of people, obviously, who are in recruiting, and I think what really stood out to me about what you're doing and just like your heart in recruiting is it was just so focused on not just filling the positions, but really developing those partnerships and also like helping companies retain talent, which is I'd love to see that in the recruitment industry. It's not just about filling, it's about retaining. So walk me through a little bit, in terms of your own development with Fireseeds, like just walk me through a little bit of that development and how you kind of came into recruiting, but what's also kept you in the industry.
Yeah. So I'll rewind a little bit. So, I mean, we, I don't know that anybody raises their hand, maybe when they're in school or just out of school and says, man, I want to be in recruiting. It's not an industry that people talk about a lot. But I think it's a fantastic industry to be in. And so I had an accounting and finance background. Actually came out to Birmingham to be a part of a program with the local church here. And through that process, got connected to Fireseeds. So one of the co-founders came and spoke to us one day. And I feel like everybody in the group, there's about 10 of us that said, man, we want to go work for those guys. Whatever they're doing, we want to be there. So Fireseeds started about 2011. This is probably 2012, 2013. But at the time, there wasn't a ton of opportunity. They were just getting started out. And so I, as you said, went into Wells Fargo, went into the banking world, into the mortgage world. And during those days, I know it's going to sound crazy, but rates went from like 3.875 all the way up to 5%. And people were panicking. If they went up to 3.875 today, people would be freaking out. We just signed on, my wife and I just signed on for 2.875 to buy a new house. So the rates have certainly catapulted, but it was terrible for the industry at the time for them to go up to 5, at least being on the sales side. And so I knew I had to get out. I wanted to get married. I was 100% commission. I said, man, I love the guys at Fireseeds. Let me just go meet with them again. And so I did. And so met with Justin, one of the co-founders, what I will say about Justin and Cord Sachs, our CEO, Cord is he leads with great vision, and that's what makes people want to follow him. He had previously founded another company called Booster Enterprises. Was there for about 7-8 years. Had seen that culture evolve through talent, and thought, could we do this on the agency side? And so really didn't have any agency experience, but just love to see cultures formed and developed, and working alongside companies that were expanding. And so Cord led me with vision to get me in the door. He talked me into a job basically as an office manager, which, that wasn't on my list of 100 things that I wanted to do when I graduated college. But I said, look, man, I just want to come work for you, and hopefully there'll be opportunity. And so about 6 months later, it wasn't very fun, right? I got tired of going to Costco. I don't know if you guys have Costco, but going to Costco and buying snacks and office paper and fixing the printer. I was like, all right, I got to do something else. This isn't working. Great guys, great company, but I'm out. And so I actually had another offer from a bank, and I think just about everybody in my close circle said, Matt, you got to do this. You're crazy for not doing this. You guys don't have insurance. You're working in a basement. By the way, I started in Cord's basement with about 6 layers of clothes, 24 degrees. We had a big ice storm. Those in the South will know the ice storm back in 2012, 2013 in Birmingham. But I came to work with 6 layers of clothes that day because it was so cold, and then we got stuck because of ice. But that's another story for another day.
Of that and everything, like, was that on like the culture video, like coolest place to work in town?
Yeah, I guess so. They did something right. So, but anyways, I decided to stay. Cord, again, led with vision, said, hey, this is where I think you're going to be in 2 or 3 years if you just stay with me, if you just stay the course. And so took on some more of the financial operations, which was more my background, and kind of dabbled in recruiting. And so we had a team of 3, 4, 5 recruiters that were recruiting full time. And I was just recruiting when we got a client that the full-time folks didn't necessarily want to work on, it seemed like. And so I was working on some good searches, some tough searches, and just really learned the business slowly. So I was able to learn it in a way where, I got to learn and pace myself over time. And then really our first wave of talent got to a place where we pushed the business to this point. And now we're getting better opportunities. Fireseeds has been great, but we're not on a rocket ship. We don't feel like we're on a rocket ship. And really at the time we weren't. This is 3 or 4 years ago. We were kind of slowly trotting. And so a lot of our early team left to better opportunities at the time. And I took over the leadership position. So since then, I've hired 4, 5, 6 recruiters, and I've headed up the operations since, and directed our recruiting efforts.
So I guess obviously you stayed because you had vision for the leadership and how they were involved. When we chatted, I mean, it sounded like you worked on some kind of more unusual roles at the beginning, and then it kind of developed. Yeah. So, what was it like, I guess, working those roles? And I know myself, like, if you're not working on those really attractive roles, I think recruiting, it can become a little bit of a drag. So I guess, how did you keep yourself motivated during those times? And was that a helpful way to learn? Is that how you kind of train people nowadays? I mean, it's it's funny. I spend a lot of my time coaching my team, hopefully with the same vision as Cord did with me, and giving them the same opportunities. But yeah, it's, you get in some searches where, for us, the beauty of our business is we do retained search. And so usually when you think of retained search, you think of only executive level searches. Well, when Cord started the business, that's what he heard was the way to do the business. Again, he didn't really know, that's exactly, what we should do, because you have retained versus contingent, obviously. But it was, no, you need a partnership mentality, really lock arms with your clients and find a way to do it. And so that helped me a lot, having that relationship with our clients, because there wasn't an option to fail.
number one, the business needed the revenue. I knew that because I was in the financial lens of the business. So I knew if we didn't close this deal by this amount of time, then I may not get a paycheck. So that was motivating enough for me. But also, there's you just have to get to a place where you say, all right, this is the search that I've been given. This is the opportunity that I've been given. And I'm going to be faithful with what I've been given. And it's not maybe frustrating to me for whatever reason, but I'm going to be faithful to what I'm given and just kind of play the next play. Was my mantra for a while. It was just, all right, what's the next best thing I can do to try to find this position that we aren't having a ton of hits on? I'm just going to keep playing. And thankfully the doors opened and we were able to move away from some of those. And we've learned a lot since then.
Yeah, and it seems like now, I mean, I know you mentioned you do a lot of executive level searches yourself. So do you accredit that to the just kind of offering that retained model, or like how do you guys vet for new clients? I mean, are you out there kind of hustling and just trying to make a ton of cold calls? Is it referral business? How do you guys typically grow?
Yeah, it's really evolved over time. So we, when I first started working, one of the reasons why initially I didn't either get a job through Fireseeds and I didn't find a role with a Fireseeds company, one that we were trying to recruit for. I mean, we were working with an oil change company, which no offense to them, was just more of a blue collar opportunity. Wasn't for me. We're working with a Defender Direct, was a different client, more in the ADT business. Again, more blue collar. We found folks that were successful there. I think we still have a guy that's placed at Defender still there 7 years later. So he's done a great job for him. So it wasn't in vain, but it just wasn't, the type of opportunity was different. You're really having to sell, you're really having to draw people in, more of that blue collar environment. And then, I pressed pretty hard in those early days. We've got to get away from these types of opportunities. People aren't on LinkedIn. They aren't applying to jobs. We're not able to serve our clients well. We can't really hold up our end of the value proposition.
Sure.
And so we kept fighting and kept getting calls in. So our business has grown primarily through serving our clients really well and getting referrals. So I would say this year alone, about 45% of our revenue is repeat business. So clients that have called us back. And then out of the 50 or so that's new business, I would imagine that a lot of those are referrals. So that's how we've grown so far. We are aggressively looking towards a strategy where we'll hire somebody to focus on sales full time. Cord is a great visionary. He's a great salesman, but we're looking to move him into a vision only role, and he'll only sell when he wants to and when he thinks it's a fun opportunity, right? But we'll bring somebody else in who's really going to drive process and say, okay, let's look at our suite of business. So we have executive level, obviously, is the top. I mean, we just finished up with the CTO position with a healthcare technology firm in Birmingham. Small business, great opportunity, great culture, great team, and we're working on a chief legal officer opportunity with a credit union. And we didn't necessarily have any legal or legal experience, but for us, we understand culture, we understand people, and so it allows us to come in and say, hey, we aren't experts in the law. But we know that here's the type of experience that you're going to have if you hire this person. Here's the type of experience that you're going to have if you hire this person. And we think this one's going to fit your culture a little bit better and be a better long-term fit. So we have the senior level positions, right? The C-suite, and then Chick Fil-A, like you and I talked about, that came on probably 4 or 5 years ago. And again, it was, do we really want to find managers to work in a restaurant business? Is hard. It's Monday through Saturday. Obviously it was Chick Fil-A, so that was a big factor.
Free food, I mean, the best food.
Free food, that's right. So free food, and not all Chick Fil-A operators give out free food to their folks, but a lot of them do. There's one operator, a good friend, he's out in Colorado. One time he asked for a search discount, and I said, look, man, you send us over some free food, maybe we can work a deal. And so I think we gave him a couple $100 off, and I had 60 different Chick-fil-A coupons in my mailbox the next week. So
that's awesome.
That's the only time that's happened. So he's the only one that's.
I would probably just end up working for free. So I'd probably be spicy deluxe for every placement. That would be the deal for me. Like,
that's right.
unlimited spicy deluxe. And
That
it
only,
looks like
that only works for so long.
And we got David out here. He as soon as we mentioned Chick Fil-A, he commented right away. So
I like it.
So what's your culture like at Fireseeds? I'm curious to, I'm somewhat familiar with like the recruiting world in terms of like what the culture is agency wise. Like, how would you describe the culture at Fireseeds?
Yeah, I mean, we are very big on employee development. So that's a huge deal for us. And, we've started Wild Spark about 5 years ago as leadership development offering along the way. And so we actually have 2 teams, 2 different companies, all working under the same roof. So it makes a lot of fun. When Fireseeds is maybe having a bad day, Wild Spark's having a great day because they just landed a big partnership. And so we're able to kind of bounce off of each other's energy. It's a high energy environment that love to celebrate. We love to celebrate each other's wins, and that's the energy is what we lost when we were remote via COVID. And sure, we liked working remote, kind of showing up and walking downstairs and logging in. There were some conveniences to it. But the week we were back, the first week we came back, I think we landed 3 or 4 new searches. And I think it was simply just because of the energy and just being able to bounce things off of each other. So that energy is probably the word I use, energy and fun culture. But from an employee development perspective, we really believe in bringing recruiters along that may not even have experience. And so Chick Fil-A has given us a great opportunity to do that. And so we're very picky with the talent we select. We want to select talent that fits our culture. And so not everybody's going to fit that. And so we know we have to be very selective in our own hiring process. But we look for folks that we believe have the abilities, they have the makeup based on their previous experience, based on their interviews and how they present themselves, to say, no, we think that you can do this industry, but you're going to have to solely rely on us to teach you in a sense. And so the way that people learn tends to be through a lot of reps over time. And so with Chick Fil-A, it's a pretty high volume deal. So you'll have more searches. So our recruiters will work on 4, 5, 6, 7 clients at a time. So that's how many jobs they'll work on at a time. But for me, I may work on 1, 2, or 3. There's just not a need to work on 6 or 7. I certainly could, but in my role, I'm trying to work on less and less so that I can be freed up to lead our team and think for our business. But they're able to work on 6 or 7 Chick-fil-A's, have a lot of wins, learn a lot of the business. They're closer to the type of person that's coming onto that opportunity. So it's an opportunity where they can come on, learn the business from an owner. So there's 1,700 different operators out there, maybe more. I think there's 2,200 Chick-fil-A locations. And it's, hey, if you maybe recently graduated college, or maybe you have a couple years of restaurant experience and you're looking for a more purpose-driven, purpose-filled environment where there's an upside, come work for us. You can learn the culture, learn the business over the course of 2 to 3 years, and then you can pursue owning your own restaurant. So that may look like working in a leadership development program with Chick-fil-A Inc., or it could be that, and they apply directly and they get the opportunity to run their own restaurant. So it's significant upside, which is what allows us to say, man, we believe in that because it's an opportunity that's growing and that people can develop in. Because if there's anything that's true today in the culture today, is if you don't have an opportunity for growth, people are gone. Right. Candidates don't want to stay. They're going to have a better opportunity 6 months later. And so you have to continue to internally, we have to continue to push our own bar to say, how do we expose you to more opportunities? Okay. So you've been really good at Chick-fil-A. How do we give you more opportunity? And we have a couple others outside of Chick-fil-A, but those just tend to be that recruiter early on in their career, they tend to serve them better than I would. If you gave me a Chick-fil-A tomorrow, I wouldn't be the best person to do it. I'd give you to somebody on my team that could do it significantly better than me. So it's been great to see you learn the business that way, get a lot of reps, and then you get to a place where you say, okay, I want some higher dollar opportunities. I want to take the next 6-figure opportunity from a salary perspective. And it allows them to step into those searches and lead more confidently than, if we would have just told them to walk into that day one, they would have gotten killed.
Well, I know, and Anna here, very impressive. I'm guessing
That's my wife.
Yeah. Well, it's.
I'm impressed that she's watching. How about that? She got 3 kids at home, chasing them around. I'm sure somebody's throwing a tantrum, so I'm impressed she's watching.
No, that's awesome, man. And what I love most about that is I think within the recruiting industry, one of the major issues that we have is bringing people into the industry. So it's really taking people that don't have experience and bringing them into recruiting. And I know a lot of what I've seen is it's just sink or swim, right? It's hey, we'll bring you in, we'll train you, and then it's up to you to make it happen. So I love that mentality of bringing in people and like what you said about getting them the wins right away and getting those reps in, because obviously in recruiting, it's so up and down anyway throughout your whole career. There's so many unknowns. There's so many things that can happen. That's exactly what it's like. It's like a roller coaster. And I think to bring people in and to be in a place where you actually encourage them to get those wins, that I think that's huge. And I think it speaks a lot about the type of culture that you have where you're celebrating each other's wins. You're very team focused. So how much of your time you're spending? Some of the time, obviously, with Fireseeds and then with Wild Spark as well. I mean, what's that balance like for you? Like, how do you balance that out typically?
Yeah, so for a while, I was able to really block off Friday afternoons from a financial perspective and just say, hey, I'm going to talk to my clients once a week. That's a critical piece to our process. And what we do is I'm going to have at least one touch point with every single client every single week. And so I would set those times for Friday morning and still do to have those update conversations to feel like, man, I've just won the week and I'm personally done. I'm personally finished, right? And so now I can shift. My mindset's done off of recruiting. Now I'm going to shift into more of that finance, budget, accounting perspective. Well, depending on the season, we meet offsite every quarter. So we take a day every quarter as a team to say, let's leave the office. Let's leave your computer at the office and let's go meet somewhere else and let's talk about the business. What are we doing really well?
Where do you guys usually meet for that? Do you have a set place or was that impacted with COVID?
Yeah, so we had a Zoom offsite all day on the Zoom camera. We had a lunch workout that day. So one of our recruiters led us in a workout at lunch to break up the day, which was easy to do because we were at home. So, we could shower or whatever. So that was how we treated COVID. I think everybody at the end of that Zoom was like, please don't get me on another Zoom for a long time. But we have one planned at a country club nearby. We've gone out to a local hotel. Actually, one of our previous guys that worked with us is now the director of sales there. And so, we'll go over there and see him. It's always fun for me, fun for the team to see him. So we just try to pick a new place and refresh and get off site. But the reason I say that is in those seasons and those times, my finance work tends to increase because we're looking at, okay, what's been happening. And then even more so recently, both of our businesses are growing and probably more so than they have, in any other year. So COVID certainly was a great challenge early on. And it's a challenge. It's more challenging for some than it is others. But for whatever reason, we're just seeing new business opportunity left and right, getting a new email, new client opportunity, new search opportunity. And so for us, we're running pretty fast right now. So we're thankful for it. So with that, there's more to manage obviously on the financial side. And so I'm trying to retire from recruiting in some ways, and take on maybe a couple executive searches a year to stay fresh and to stay in it. But the less scheduled meetings that I have, the better, because it allows me to say, you know what, this week I need to focus 8 hours on building a budget, or this week I need to focus 8 hours on looking at financial trends, or this week I need to think about, developing our team. And so I'm a big time blocking fan. Time blocking and list building. Sometimes you build a list and nothing is done, but between those two things, time blocking, list building, and I set timers on my phone and, just to keep me engaged. So if I'm working on something that's maybe not as engaging, I'll set a 30-minute timer. And when that pops, I'll stop, I'll go get a snack, whatever. So those are a couple of things that have helped me kind of time block. But again, it really changes every single week. But anywhere between leadership, actually working on the searches that I'm pushing forward, and finance.
Wow, love it. And so then are you split equally then between like Fireseeds and WildSpark, like both of them equally, or what have you seen like the growth wise? Have you seen more growth on with WildSpark compared to Fireseeds, or what's that looked like for you over time?
Yeah, so we've seen with WildSpark, it's a leadership tool platform that clients use. We've seen companies of 600 people utilize it with all 500 or 600. We've seen companies of 2,000 utilize it with 80. So it really kind of depends, but it's a plan, if you will, to where they have something to do from a leadership development perspective. They log in and complete the lesson, complete the content every month. So it actually grew pretty rapidly within Chick Fil-A, and Chick Fil-A is still a big client. Obviously, knowing Chick Fil-A, valuing culture, valuing leadership development, they really bought it quickly. And so we had a significant spike in those first probably 2 years getting into that market. And then over the last year, we've really focused hard on how do we target clients that are going to be with us for a long term. So with Chick Fil-A, there's a lot of turnover, right? And so they can maybe use it for a year, they can use it for 2 years, and they say, man, that was a great product, we loved it, but all of our team is turned over. This is normal for us. And so for me to get buy-in again from my team, we've got other priorities to shift on, and that's okay. And then you have some that are still here 4 or 5 years later. So it really depends on every business. But what we've seen with some banks, some credit unions, once they get a plan like this in place, they don't stop it. They like to keep going. One of our bigger companies right now has been with us for about 4 years now. And so we're starting to see an uptick in growth of just bigger clients. Obviously means bigger contracts, right? Bigger opportunities. And so I think we're going to see a significant spike on the WildSpark side next year, just because of all the work that they've done to really define what industries are we going to target. So I probably spend honestly about 10 to 15% of my physical time in WildSpark, maybe 10 to 20. Again, it kind of varies. Mental times, maybe more. I'm thinking about it all the time, but physical, I've got to work on a project that's WildSpark related, somewhere in that 10 to 20%. And then about, Telly's with about 80%. To focus on Fireseeds. And then with Fireseeds, we got to a place in the early days, and this is about 2015, about 4 years into our business, where a lot of our talent did transition to other opportunities, and it was a great vision for us and where we wanted to be, but the execution was lacking. And so what we did, it was me and one other recruiter. So Wendy Coley, she's a senior recruiter with us. We kind of looked at each other in the eye back in 2015 and said, what the heck are we doing? How do we keep going? And so I think that year we did $650,000 in revenue. It was nothing. It was just two of us working on searches and trying to push the business forward.
For a 2-person team, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it was. We were pretty tired at the end of the year. We were very busy. But what we did was change and say, okay, what process can we put in place that's repeatable, that we can bring recruiters in, that they can learn. And what we've seen is year one, a recruiter generally does a certain amount of revenue. They certainly hit a similar target. Year two, they generally double that. And year three, it's kind of sky's the limit. And so we've seen some more predictable success to where we can look at our current team and say, we should do about $1.5 million in bookings next year, and then the next year we should do 2, because we're stepping into more and more executive search opportunities. So obviously with the executive search, as the fees certainly increase, based on those compensation opportunities increase. So that's really been the biggest change probably for the growth of our business, is just getting more and more opportunity, more and more C-level opportunities, because they aren't necessarily faster. Our average search time is probably in the 6 to 10 week range. Outside of executive, it's probably 12 to 20. Just kind of depends on the opportunity. So, but we'll have some that are supposed to go 6 to 10 weeks that go 12 or 14. And so it ends up being the executive search is more enjoyable in a sense, because you have a lot of folks that are vying for the position. And so you're able to really focus on culture and advise the client on, hey, yes, we have 6 people. We're super excited about that. But how do we look at the top 2? What do you guys really need? That's ultimately going to be a win for you guys long term. So that's significantly helped our growth. So we probably doubled in size over the last 4 years from a revenue perspective. And I would be surprised if we didn't double over the next 2 years again. And I think we could do more than that. But that's what I would expect based on what's happening right now.
So do you think that at that point where people left, was purely kind of like two-sided, where it was the positions you were working on were a little bit more of like a burn and churn, kind of like just a nonstop hustle, and then it sounds like you didn't have much of a process in place, and then as you decided to kind of make changes to that process, it's easier to onboard people. And so what made you, I guess, because you must have been going through the same thing, and it's like Wendy was too. So what do you think? Like, what do you think kept both of you guys at the company? What was different from the other people that left?
So Wendy has worked with us part-time for 7 years now. Has done a fantastic job for us. She started in Birmingham when she lived in Birmingham, recently got remarried and moved to Atlanta. And so it's been a great, I guess that was about 2 years ago. It's been a while, maybe even 3. I should remember that. But so she's moved to Atlanta, has lived in Atlanta. It's just really worked for her. She started out in the fitness arena. Has a fitness background and we worked with a company called Iron Tribe Fitness. They're a Birmingham-based fitness company that has expanded all over the country. And she placed, I think, 110 leaders with them. Wow. And so she was loving Iron Tribe. You know, they were expanding, going from 5 franchises to 50 was their goal, and ultimately to 100. And so they had big goals for growth. And Wendy got to really be a part of that. And she got to do it remotely, and so she kind of got to do it how she wanted to do it, right? Because she was remote part-time, and she got to run after it and was doing something that she loved. And in a lot of ways too, I mean, she had a family to provide for, right? You know, and she loved the vision and loved what we were doing, and that's probably similar to me. I really loved Cord and bought into his vision and what he was doing, and said, and I had a family to provide for. I just had our first son, and my wife wasn't working. We wanted her to stay home with him. And so it was time, you know, and I felt a loyalty to Cord as well, because I mean, I'm coming into the numbers meeting on Friday, right? And we're looking and we're saying, okay, how do we make up $20,000 in income so that we can pay our payroll? And so that's kind of where we were around that same time that folks were deciding to transition. So it was a tough time for us. It was a tough time as a business, tough time for me personally, but I just felt a loyalty to Cord and a loyalty to the business, and just had a belief in what we were doing. And so decided to stay, and super glad that I did. I think, man, I just very grateful for where we are today based on where we were 4 years ago. But so I think that was a lot of it. And then for me, I got to implement the process after that. So of course, it's always fun to implement the process, right? It may not always be fun to receive the process that somebody has for you. But I just seen some success, some wins. I think at that point, my search time was like 6.5 weeks, and so I was running after pretty much anything pretty quickly. And so the leadership paid attention to that and said, "Hey, we like what you're doing. We want you to move forward in the director of recruiting spot." So that's ultimately how I got that opportunity. But I think at the end of the day, process wins. And a lot of people don't like process. You know, it can be a negative of just, man, why do we have to just focus on the process? Not necessarily internally, but just in general in culture today. It's let me do it my own way. But I really believe that, as much as I can't stand Alabama football and Nick Saban, it's amazing what they do every year, right? He's a machine, and it's because he's got a process that he knows works. And so we've really been able to implement that. And I think it's allowed us to keep people, because the reality is still a roller coaster. If you went and met with anybody on my team, they'd say, man, it's a roller coaster. Sometimes I feel like I'm sink or swim because the industry is just really hard. And so we've been very diligent to try to say yes to the right things and no to the searches that don't make sense. Even maybe we'll make 10 grand or 12 grand or 15 grand, whatever it is. We're willing to say, no, you know what, client, we're not interested because it's not going to be, it's ultimately going to be an energy drain for our team, which is not going to allow us to be able to move forward in a more successful way. And so we're not 100% effective at that. It's very difficult to say no. It's one of the hardest things for me.
Especially right now.
Yeah, especially right now. But the more that we say no, and we haven't had to say it as much recently, I think it gives us confidence to say yes to the right thing. And so we've just worked really diligently on that. And I think that's, the team sees that and they see, hey, we're trying to get the best of the best searches in here. And so I think everybody sees that, but it still is a roller coaster. You can't get away from the roller coaster of recruiting, but you try to take your emotions out of it. The more that your emotions are in it, it's going to feel that way. The first couple of years, I come to my wife about every 4 months, like, man, I don't know if I can do this, and she'd say, well, it's about that time. It's about that time that you come and shared that it's up and down. But that's just the reality of the business. So the more you can take your emotions out of it and just keep playing the next play, the better. And the better clients that you can bring on, better clients always win, right? And so better searches always win because usually they're more attractive and there's more of a candidate pool, and so that increases energy internally. So we'll continue to fight for getting the best ones.
And I think for anybody that's just starting in recruiting, I think that's the hardest lesson to learn, and even for people who have been in the industry a long time. I mean, it's how do you vet the new clients, and how do you figure out which clients are going to be great clients to work with, that you're going to work with that they're going to help you with the candidate process. And I mean, it's a huge issue within our industry. I know I posted about that recently, where communication, it's massive, but obviously right now, I know there's a lot of industries that are hurting. So you're more in that mindset of I'll take anything. Yep. But it also that also compounds our whole industry, and when you get people that are willing to just do any search, and they're not even willing to, the client's not willing to have a conversation with you, it doesn't set up anybody well for success. So 100% agree with you. I'm curious, where do you everything that's going on with COVID-19, like obviously you guys were impacted, but what do you kind of attribute your success to in terms of growing, and like, where do you see you guys, I guess, pivoting, or have you had to make any pivots in what you're doing, to really survive and grow during this time?
Amazingly, we've certainly made some pivots. But if you've been to a Chick Fil-A drive-through recently, they haven't slowed down. If anything, they've increased business, and so that was a scare initially, right? They're the restaurant business; they're 40% of our business or whatever it is, and so that was a scare to say, man, that seems like the restaurant business is going to tank. But thankfully, for the most part, a lot of our Chick Fil-A's are up. Their revenues are up this year because people are just flocking to them. So that was a big blessing for us. And just for them to be able to sustain. They maybe called us more since COVID started. We've had some long-term partnerships that have called us back. That credit union I was talking about, we've worked with them about 5 years now. They came to us initially with 7 needs. Several of those were C-suite about 5 years ago, and it seems like about every year and a half, they call us back with another significant need. And so they came on right in the midst of COVID because they're approaching $1 billion in assets, which is significant for a small credit union. And so it was just our clients were growing at the right time, and some were transitioning people. Somebody was retiring, and they really needed that C-level position. And so thankfully, we haven't seen a ton of drop off. Now, who knows what our revenues would have been had COVID not happened? Who knows? I mean, nobody knows. But I think just building those relationships over time and really serving every client the same. We don't serve a Chick Fil-A any different, or an administrative assistant role any different than we do a C-suite position. We're going to serve that client the exact same way, top to bottom. And so sometimes we wonder, man, we're doing a lot of work, on this admin role. Should we do it? We question ourselves. But I think the experience that the client gets, they haven't seen this anywhere else. So usually it's, hey, you're going to get 10 resumes, from a lot of recruiting firms. Here's your 10 resumes. Hope one works out. When we send over resumes, I mean, we may send over 2 or 3 at a time, and we're saying, hey, here's what we like about this one. Here's why we think you should be concerned about this one based on what we know about your culture. And so for us, it's just a really big deal to get the right fit. And I think that's ultimately led to, in times like this, clients, they have needs and they still call us back.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, again, I think when it comes to the industry, that's, it's a numbers game a lot of times. And I think, I think about like the lower level roles. Obviously, you're more incentivized to work on the higher level roles. But what people can often forget is it's how you treat the smaller roles. Is how you usually win the bigger relationships. And not everybody is going to trust you right out of the get-go with an executive level role. Maybe it is an administrational role, but if you treat that as if it's not worth your time, it just really lays a bad foundation for a relationship. So I love that, and I'm sure bringing people in is a lot easier in that type of environment than what we see across the industry. Have you had anybody who has had experience come in and kind of, I guess, kind of be able to articulate like the difference between what you guys are doing and what the industry is doing? Have you had any of that?
So, I mean, we have not hired anybody from the industry yet to this point. So we haven't necessarily experienced that yet. I mean, we have talked to some friends, in the industry we've had a great coach, a great firm, a local firm. They focus more on healthcare, but
Cool.
Small firm, executive search firm, primarily executive healthcare, that have given us a lot of advice along the way. So that mentorship, that relationship, they've made some tweaks to our process, even regular communication. I remember in the early days, it was, hey, client, I'm so glad that we can take on this search. We'll talk to you in 8 weeks or 6 weeks and hope that we have some people for you. And we literally wouldn't talk to them again. We wouldn't talk to them for 6 weeks. We wouldn't call them, wouldn't email them. We're just like in the hallway playing cornhole, I guess, and hoping that a candidate comes to the process. And so it's just amazing. You think of the early days, and those were fun times. Those were good times. Yeah. But it's communication that has ultimately flipped and allowed us to, I think, be able to fit in. But going back to that, it's that mentorship relationship that said, hey guys, here's some holes in your business. Y'all need to try this. Y'all need to do this. Y'all need to think about this. So that was very helpful. And then we met with somebody came in that had worked at another local recruiting firm, and they were asking us, how many positions do you take on that you don't fill? And we were like, I think 5 in our lifetime, or 6 or 7. And I think we filled 600 at this point. And they're like, what do you mean? So your fill rate's like 99%? We're like, yeah, we don't take on anything that we don't think that we won't finish. And so they were shocked. And I can't remember what their fill rate was, but so
probably, yeah. I mean, maybe 60, 70%, something like that. And I love that though. I mean, again, I think the communication piece is huge. And I know, I know a couple times I've called up clients where I don't have anything for them. And I think a lot of times we don't want to call somebody up if we don't have the candidate, right? But it's a long way in just terms of just building relationships, calling them up, letting them know, hey, we're still working on this. We've still got a process in place. We're optimistic that we're going to find someone. And I think, either what you find in the industry a lot of the times is, hey, here's 10 resumes. Hopefully one will fit, so I get paid. Yep. Or it's like, yeah, we'll work on it, and then you just never hear from anybody again. And so I think that partnership approach, calling people up regularly, building that relationship is big, and working through with the clients, like what's the process? Like we have a clear process that's always going to help build the relationship, because again, I think what the usual experience is, we'll drop in, we'll probably send you those 10 resumes right away. If none of them are a fit, we might drop in one more time and throw some more resumes at you. But for a lot of clients, it's like their partners are usually the hiring managers. So it's almost like their client is the hiring manager, and they want to show the hiring manager, yeah, we're working on this. But if you're not showing them that, then it kind of doesn't help out with the process. So I think that fill rate that you said, 99%, it sounds like that's all to do with that communication and that process and building that trust. So that's huge, man. That's why you guys are growing. That's why you have great partnerships. You mentioned bringing on somebody in sales, right? So most of your business is from referrals. How I guess I'm curious to like how that sales process would even work, or how you're envisioning that. I mean, is it more like, hey, we'll kind of like vet clients out, or do you have like an idea in mind of how you would find those right clients? How do you build that in?
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? We don't grow up, we don't do this really, really well. And so as a small firm, and a lot of the business is the recruiter finds their own business. And so it's a full desk recruiter. I fill the positions, and I also find the positions, or I find the positions. I have a recruiter that's funneling me people, and then I connect them to that client. So that recruiter actually never has a relationship with the client. They're blocked off by that business development specialist or whatever they are. And so we said pretty early on, we don't really want to do that. That was probably more my desire to not sell. I'm not a salesman at heart, right? I'm a process guy. That's why I like recruiting, because I can work the process and the process works and I win more times than I don't. And so for me, sales isn't always a process. I guess it can be. It's becoming more that way. Think of all the sales development representatives out there. So companies are figuring out a way to make it more systematic. But a lot of times it comes through relationships. It comes through referrals. And so certainly that's how we've grown so far. So I guess with this person coming in, what I'll work hard to do is define some clear targets. And so I think the biggest challenge of our business is, since we are culture specific and partnership specific, and finding, because culture is a buzzword, right? It's everybody would say, yeah, we got a culture, we believe in culture, that's important to us. I mean, everybody would say that. Wells Fargo would say that. Yeah, culture matters.
No one ever tells you they have a bad culture. You just have to recruit for 10 minutes, and then you find out who's got the good culture.
Yeah, you know pretty quick when you get on that recruiting call, as you know. But it really is, man, who deeply cares about their people, who deeply cares about their culture, and who wants to develop their people over time. Those are the types of clients that we're looking for. Now, we found that in Chick Fil-A, obviously. And so we want to continue that. But we also know we have a lot of opportunity in that kind of 60%. So if you said 40% is Chick Fil-A, we want to focus on growing the other piece of the pie, the 60%, because there's so much opportunity with Chick Fil-A, it can almost be a handicap to say, well, I'm just going to go after Chick Fil-A opportunities. Well, then we've got to build our bench of lower level recruiters, which wouldn't be the end of the world. We want to do that. We'll grow through our recruiters bringing on their own team. So we want to do that. But before we do that, we've got to figure out how to expand the 60% outside of that. So for us, that's been the nonprofit world. So we've done several searches within the Christian nonprofit arena. Really enjoy those opportunities, those mission-driven opportunities. And faith is certainly a big part of my story and my background. And so those are easy to connect to for me and for a lot of the folks here. And so we'll see how do we continue to expand that. We've had some C-level opportunities there. Construction, honestly, has been an industry that's been evolving. It's a very tight industry for talent. So we may pursue some opportunities there. And there's several other segments. You think healthcare or you think technology. Obviously, technology is not going anywhere. And so we'll pick a few industries and say, okay, let's look for some buzzwords or some keywords for people that are in this space, that maybe they're a director of HR or maybe they're a president, CEO. And let's just get our message out there of who we are and see what kind of conversations we can get into. So that person's biggest challenge will be finding the right company. But I think once they figure that out, we haven't been in many sales meetings where the company said, you know what, guys, I don't believe in you guys, and I don't think this is the right fit. So if we can get a sales meeting, if we want the search, in most cases, we walk away with that search. Obviously, that's not 100% success rate. But if we get in that sales meeting, we feel pretty confident. And so if this person can just figure out, we call it the flywheel, get the flywheel spinning, right? Figure out which pool to fish in and which pool can pull out the most fish, right? And so we'll learn a lot through failing, right? But I think once it happens, it's really going to explode, because we're just going to have a repeatable process that we say, hey, here's what we're going to do, here's the state we're going to look for, and then we're going to grow through referrals and repeat business. And so I think we could be ahead of some significant growth. And if I was sitting here and only 1 year of experience, everybody says that 1 year in, but 9 years in, we've kind of rode the waves up and down and feel like, man, no, we actually are right on the edge of some significant growth. So we're super excited, super pleased. But hopefully we'll make it less big blue ocean if possible.
No, I love it, man. And I think, when we talked, and just so everyone out there, it's way different when you have a conversation with someone. And especially within the recruiting industry, I talk to so many people. And one of the things that really struck me about you and about what you guys are doing is it's that passion to really serve people. And I think that's a buzzword a lot. Like, people throw that around like, yeah, we'll serve you. But I think when you actually have that true passion and you're wanting to find those right clients and you're wanting to find the clients that you align with, you understand that if you understand their mission, it's easier to recruit for them. And I think that's a huge issue within our industry because people will just take on anything. But I think with the passion that you guys have and the stories, I mean, anybody out there, if you go to the Fireseeds website, I mean, you should just see the client testimonials, what people are saying about them. And I think to your point, it's when you get into those sales meetings and people really see it's the passion for people and the passion for serving. So if you take on a lower position, knowing like, hey, we're going to treat this the way that you should be treated, which is we're going to put you first. We truly care. And to me, it doesn't happen enough, but then you have a process too. And I think having that clear process obviously helps install that with people too. So I love it, Matt. And I know we're coming up to about an hour here. So I want to just be sensitive of your time.
Yeah.
For people who are looking to connect with you, what's the best place to connect with you, and what's the best place for people to find out more about what you're doing and how to partner with you? How do you recommend people reach out?
Yeah, certainly. LinkedIn obviously is a great place to connect. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Check it daily. Obviously, you pretty much have to in the recruiting business. So sending a connection request, just saying, hey, I heard you on the show, would love to chat. I think when I get a connection request and it has nothing in it, it's like, man, I have no idea who this person is. It's got nothing in the connection request. I don't know if I should accept it. But for those that put a note in, it goes a long way for me. So, hey, saw you on the show, heard about Fireseeds, whatever it is, would love to connect. That's a great way too. Obviously, you can always shoot me an email. I'm Matt, M-A-T-T, at Fireseeds.com. And if you just want to connect on the industry, or if you think you might have some search opportunities, would be happy to connect. Shoot me an email. And then obviously our website, you can go in there and fill out a contact us form. It may not be me who contacts you, but you'll get contacted if you want to go that way. So a couple of different options there.
Do you guys have any events or anything coming up that be worthwhile mentioning?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. With COVID, the event scene is more challenging. So yeah, none that I know of coming up. But yeah, we're looking forward to Q4 and finishing out the year really, really well. We always get focused on Q4, probably like everybody else does, and then you realize, oh, we need to have some revenue in January too. So we'll focus on Q4 while also building towards next year.
But I mean, 2020 is nearly over, so I think that's music to everybody's ears. I think, and I just want to say we had Gabriel out there just said, "Love the show, Joel, great stuff." And then Josh Swing just said, "Solid content, all about the genuine passion for people." And yeah, Josh, definitely that's what Matt's all about. And I think if you get the opportunity to connect with him, that's what you feel. Just very, very warm. And you can just tell that there's that real passion for people. And then we had, let's see, we've got Mazen just said hi. And I think the only person we missed was Tom here too, just said, way to go, Matt. And so yeah, Matt, I'm so privileged to have had you on the show, and I love what you guys are doing. And there's no doubt in my mind that if we're able to do this again in a couple of years, there's no doubt that you guys will have grown and hopefully, as people start hearing about the way that you guys are doing it and just the way that you work with people, hopefully we can start to see the change in our industry as well. So really appreciate you, man. Appreciate everything you've done. And everybody connect with Matt. Remember that personalized message. That's the type of guy he is. So I love that.
No, thanks. Appreciate it, Joel. And it's been a pleasure, and really enjoyed it. And I'd tell everybody to go follow your content as well, just because you're writing very relevant things to the industry and what you're putting out there. I mean, even the one that you referenced about the clients, finding clients that communicate with you, it's 100% true. So what Joel's writing is not fluffy, if you will. You see a lot of fluff out there. It's good stuff that you can take and run with. So definitely follow, give Joel a follow as well, as many of you already are. But you'll learn a lot. And
well, appreciate you, man. And we're gonna end this. And I think real quick before we just sign off, Ardnan and Benet said, hi as well. And it sounds like Arden just loved hearing about Fireseeds and Wild Spark as well. So definitely appreciate it. And we will end this and we'll see you guys. I think on Friday I've got another guest, so I'll make some announcements on that as well. So we'll end this broadcast for now.